Have you had moments in your life when you've been empathetic to somebody, when you've been sympathetic to somebody, when you've been a good listener, and someone says, thank you for being a great listener, or someone compliments you on how empathetic you've been? Of course we all have. So it's about learning how to tap into that. It's not that we really have to read 3 or 4 books on how to be empathetic. The problem is we're shutting down empathy or active listening because of the negative habits. So the most important thing we should do first, before reading another book about emotional intelligence skills and the insights about them, is figure out the things that are getting in the way of them, when we need to deploy them and tap into them. That's what we're aiming to do too. When step 1 of kind of mental fitness is intercepting sabotaging habits, you can start to learn and develop and refine some of the softer skills and the symptomatic elements that we're always skipping right over and going first with right now. And then the last thing, and this is a big one that we'll wrap the whole conversation, the final piece of this presentation with, is we're talking about having one operating system for you to operate on for any challenge or any adversity you face versus having all these competing priorities. The 7 habits of highly successful people, this acronym, the ABC here, the 4 steps of this, the 7 steps of that. I mean, my goodness, who can remember any of that, right? And so, and then, by the way, I'm going to throw you into really successful. You just got off a call with your boss. That was stressful. You're in a conversation with a customer who's yelling at you. That's stressful. Your wife or your husband's yelling at you, texting you, saying you're dropping the ball on something. That's stressful. You think you're going to remember any one of those 50,000 acronyms and analogies in that moment? We need to simplify this for ourselves. It's constant. And honestly, employees sit in rooms. I was around them, and I was one of them. And they roll their eyes at organizations doing this year over year because every new leader that comes in, every new head of training or head of field enablement always thinks their acronym, their next acronym, that's the one, right? It's never the one. It's never the one when stress, challenge, and adversity hits because you haven't gotten to the things that you need to get to first. They can be complementary, but they can't, there's nothing that gets to the root cause. So we need to have something at the baseline. And what we're trying to do is replicate what we're used to in tech. What we've become used to. So just back to the 80s. I was born in 1980, so I'm on that borderline millennial wall. And I can still remember back in the 80s, you had typewriters typed, word processors did word processing, calculators did calculating, and then all of a sudden the amazing invention, right, of operating systems came into play where you could do all these types of things on one system. And so that's what we're all used to now. We take it for granted. Our phones, thousands of apps. There's a new app every day we're downloading and using and leveraging. But it's always dependent upon the most updated and a highly efficient iOS operating system or the latest Android operating system, right? So if we think about it from the human element, what's our hardware? Well, our hardware is up here. This is our intricate hardware, is our brain. It's got a lot of capability. It can go in a lot of different directions. It can do a lot of complex problem solving. And then what we spend all of our time on is on those top-level bubbles, which is, these are just some examples, but inclusion and diversity strategies, all the learning and development strategies, leadership development programs, selling strategies, emotional intelligence, what have you. We're spending all of our time on that, but we don't have an operating system. We don't have an operating system for when things are difficult, things are hard, things test us, and our natural survival mode in our body happens. We have cortisol spikes because of stress and tension and anxiety. We don't have anything to help keep us calm to remember which one of these apps do I want to tap? Which one of these levers do I want to pull right now? That's what we're creating through this 3-step process. Intercept, and I want to explain these right now as far as, because we've got 3 boxes up here, which are really cool visuals, but I think it's important to kind of dig into what these mean a little bit more. So the operating system, and I'm a terrible whiteboarder as far as handwriting goes, but I'm going to do this for how it resonates for me, if everyone can see in the room. This box, which you're seeing 2 arrows up there, is our bad habits, the SABs, I call them, right? And then this box, we've got something really cool and unique to help you develop self-command capacity. We call them PQ reps. I'm going to talk about those in a minute. And this is where all of our EQ and soft skills either sits in a vault or gets mobilized and unleashed. And then it all equals a greater percentage of time in a positive mindset. So every time we come up upon something, we go through this 3-step process in sequential order. in order to figure out all of those different applications that we're having. But the first thing you have to do, and the reason we have a 2-lane road there showing you, is that right now our habits are so strong and so hardwired that most of us literally have almost a 4-lane highway of the sabotaging tendency that we're typically traveling down. We've been going down it so long that we had to create a 4-lane highway for it. On the flip side, the percentage of time that we actually go in this calm, clear-headed, and focused direction where we leverage one of the 5 core powers is like a 2-lane dirt road. And so we need to start to shift that. We need to recognize when we face challenge and adversity. First step here is recognize there is a choice. There is a choice between this knee-jerk response that I'm starting to feel, and all you need to do is look for negative emotions. Very simple. You don't even need to look for your controller or your hypervigilant or your avoider or your victim or your pleaser. Just feel your emotions. And if you start feeling negative emotions, you are being hijacked by one of your sabotaging tendencies, and you're starting to go down the highway. And you're not going down the dirt road that you want to start building. And so by following that, you now realize I'm going to start creating the path when I face a stressful situation where I stop going down this negative path where all the 4-lane highways are, and I start going down the 2-lane road. Over time, you can start to make the 4-lane highway something that you can restrict, and the 2-lane dirt road can be widened. How you do that is, first step is you intercept those, and identification is a very simple piece. Some people love the assessment, just that part alone, because they go, man, I can finally label it now. And the first thing everybody does is they say, yeah, boy, my wife and my husband really could use this. You know, I can see that in them so much, right? That's what you were all thinking. Yeah, that SOB is a controlling. Oh my, I can't wait to tell him to read this book. Probably not the best way to start it off, by the way. The best way to start it off would be to say, here's the ones I struggle with. And I'd love for you to see which ones you do, and maybe it'll help us work together. My wife and I have a field day with this. It has made it so much better for us to coexist. I mean, we're very passionate people, and I'm typically a little difficult to deal with. I'm first to admit that. But this is such a defining piece. It's such a, I would say, advantage in interpersonal interactions. When I would sit in a conference room at Amex, I would see a room start to get very emotional, and no longer sitting there going around and letting my judge come into my mind and saying, Jesus, this guy or this girl's a jerk, right? I start going, up, there's her controller. Yep, there's his stickler. He's being hijacked by his judge. Just the labeling and identification alone allows for and I knew mine as well, allows for massive empathy to take place. It's discernment. It's not judgment, right? And so what that allowed me to do was stay calm, stay clear-headed. I wouldn't become a part of the vortex. You become susceptible to whatever environment you're in unless you have this ability to kind of be able to remove yourself essentially from all the emotion that you normally just get subconsciously sucked into. So it's a really important differentiating factor, and it's beneficial in fights with spouses, conference room meetings, a customer. I mean, think about this with customers. You see them get emotional. They're having a really stressful day. That doesn't mean, you can see them getting hijacked in the meeting. So just think being able to say, and you can't get emotional. If you're a customer service rep, it's your job. The brand lives or dies on your ability to stay calm in that moment. I've been the guy on the other side calling a company, complaining, getting emotional as an unhappy consumer. And when those reps can stay calm and clear-headed with me and not get into the vortex that I'm trying to suck them into, I always cave. And I always compliment them at the end. It's an amazing tactic. You don't need to learn one other selling or customer service technique again. You start figuring out how to be the calmest, clear-headed person in the room so that you can just think clearly with all the intellect you have as of today, right now, and I guarantee you'll see your results go up 30 or 40%. That's simple. That's how powerful an operating system like this can be. Now, shifting is one of the interesting things as well. Identification works for some, but then some people can even identify it. They can see someone else getting hijacked. They can feel themselves being hijacked. But shifting from negative to positive, which is the essence of how mentally fit we are, is where some people get hung up. Because that's the muscle part. That's not just something you can read about. We all know we shouldn't be frustrated. We all know we should look at the glass half full. So what we have done is Shirzad created what he calls PQ reps, which are little hyper focuses on any one of your senses for 10 seconds. And the advantage of doing this, so think about that: sight, smell, hearing, vision, touching. It sounds a little silly, right? I ask you to rub 2 fingertips together with such intention that you can actually feel the ridges of your fingertips. Or if you're listening to music, You actually pick out one specific instrument in the song like jazz musicians do. You don't just listen to the song mindlessly in the chorus and the vocalist, but you pick out the one little tap on the bass drum and you specifically focus on that for 10 seconds. Or when you mindlessly drink that cup of coffee like you normally do, take 10 or 15 seconds to really feel the texture and the temperature of the cup and really taste the cup of coffee. I know that sounds a little simple, but that same mental shift that you're asking yourself to do, clear out the brain chatter, clear out everything, and take 10 seconds to put your brain where you want it, is the exact same thing you need to do to say, I'm feeling frustrated, I know I should go positive, so I need to do it. And if you practice that enough, you actually do start to create a new habitual power over your mind where you start to have self-command to go into the positive side of your brain. This gives you all the same benefits of meditation and mindfulness, but the beauty is you could be doing them right now while I'm talking. I could be doing them. If I do these well enough and I do them long enough, I could be doing them while I'm presenting. I'm not currently that capable. I think Shirzad can do that. But you can actually do them in any circumstance. Walking through airports, sitting across from your boss, sitting in an all-day meeting. You can practice these reps. Every time you do them, you will realize, as you start to do them more often, you'll feel a calming in your body. You'll feel your brain waves flatten out. And you get all the same things that we crave, which is why there's a massive boom in mindfulness and meditation right now, 30 million downloads on each of the top 2 apps, because people are craving that clearing of the brain chatter and that flattening out, right, and the lowering of cortisol. But the problem is you need to figure out something that you can do right before you walk into the sales call, right when you're standing on your free throw line, right when you're in the middle of a disagreement with your spouse, that if that doesn't go well is going to interrupt the rest of your workday.